Hello and welcome to your short Dash reconciliation overview training video. With the launch of Dash this year, we're excited to launch a more streamlined student banking reconciliation process. Thanks to the hard work of our Build Finance team, the Dash reconciliation should be a more accurate and thorough way to track transactions and to help program managers view their team's activity in summary format. It is our hope that the revamped Recon spreadsheet is the only document that program managers will need to maintain to track student team activity. There will be one reconciliation spreadsheet per Dash account, aka the class of 2019, the class of 2020, etc. That's important to note. Your Recon spreadsheet can be found on the server on SharePoint. Go to Curriculum and Implementation on the MPT page, then Student Bank Account Implementation, and then the Dash Student Banking folder. Once there, you'll find this Dash Site Recons folder, which will house all of these spreadsheets. Again, one spreadsheet per site per program year. Please make sure to only use the spreadsheet saved in this folder. Do not save them on your own desktop because then finance won't have access to input critical information that will make all the formulas work for you. Let's look at what these spreadsheets look like. For your main purposes, you'll be working with three tabs in the spreadsheet: Bank Account Activity, Individual Team Activity, and a Summary tab. Note, though, that there are some tabs that are hidden for finance's use only. It's also important to note that the Drop Dash Export tab will be monitored and used by finance only this year. For the time being, finance will pull reports from Dash.com with all the transaction history data that your teams have spent and input it into this tab so that it can populate into the summary totals. In the future, program managers will do this themselves, but for the time being, again, finance wants to oversee to make sure that this is the correct information. The first tab that you'll be working with is the Bank Activity Tracking. Remember, there is only one Bank of America account per site that all Dash accounts are linked to. So, each program's reconciliation spreadsheet will need to track the bank activity that those program managers did. This tab is essential because we need to audit our activity of money in and out of each site's Bank of America bank account, and it's not done anywhere else other than this spreadsheet, which makes it critical. Let's say I'm planning an E2 selling event and I pull out $500 in petty cash. It is my responsibility to deposit that same $500 back into the bank account within 48 hours of the event, and I need to document that here so we have it on record for our auditors, coding what that transaction was for. You can see an example here of seed funding from Build that got deposited into the bank account for $100, and then I'm going to transfer that seed funding to the Dash Vault for the same $100, and so I just indicate that that money came in and that money came out. Now, if activity happens on this bank account that it does not involve my program, let's say, for example, an E1 selling event occurs, you do not need to track the transactions for that event. Only the E1 reconciliation spreadsheet would need to track that. Here are the most common things that you'll be tracking on the Bank Account Activity tab. First, seed funding, both the lump sum of seed funding that's deposited from Build into the bank account and the seed funding that's transferred as a lump sum to the Dash Vault. Your petty cash, again, the petty cash that's deposited, that's withdrawn from the bank prior to a selling event, and the lump sum that's returned within 48 hours after an event. Revenue, both the incoming lump sum from check cash sales or Square after a selling event, and the revenue transferred to the Dash Vault as a lump sum. Profit sharing. While this process hasn't yet been finalized, you'll most likely need to track the lump profit sum that gets transferred from Dash to the bank along with the seed funding that gets returned to build. As you track bank transactions, be sure to remember to document the date, your name, proper coding categories, and the dollar amount as either a positive or a negative number depending on the transaction. The next tab you'll enter info into is the Team Tracking Activity tab. Given that all the transactions on the previous tab are lump sums, you'll need to break down those lump sums according to individual team amounts. So, for example, if you had $1,000 in seed funding deposited for all E1 teams, then you'll need to break that amount down by individual teams on this tab. You can see an example here where Sneaker Boo had $50 in seed funding. That was just the portion that they received from the lump sum that we tracked on the previous tab. Finance will enter all teams organized by a coding system. You can see here Sneaker Boo with number 7626, which allows you to just select the appropriate team from a drop-down menu each time. If any of your teams aren't listed here, please let Finance know ASAP. Similar to the previous tab, the coding categories for each entry are also pre-populated. The most common things you'll need to track are seed funding, which will be the specific amount of seed funding you release to each team's dash card. Revenue, again, the specific amount of revenue earned from sales deposited to each team's dash card. Loan forgiveness as a total amount at the end of the year, since this also needs to be tracked with return of seed funding for the formula's purpose on the spreadsheet. And profit sharing. Again, we'll figure out the details of this soon, but you'll need to track the individual amounts that are awarded to each student when they are paid out at the end of the year. Be sure to enter for each transaction the date, the quarter in which activity happened, quarter 1, 2, 3, or 4, a note or description of the activity, was this revenue, was this seed funding, and then the corresponding team and category, along with the dollar amount, again, either as a positive or negative number depending on the transaction. Lastly, the Summary tab will pull all this information listed from the previously shown tabs and summarize the information so you can have one snapshot of a team's progress, which includes running totals of all categories: revenue earned, money spent on materials, seed funding, etc. This should be the most accurate place to go for student business team data totals. Please reach out to the finance team along with Chris and Lissa as questions arise with the Recon process this year. While it definitely will still take effort to maintain, the entry work is much more streamlined than in the past. And with consistent oversight, it should stay straightforward. AKA, don't wait to enter all your data until the last minute. Carve out 30 minutes per week to stay on top of your entry. If your Dash account is up and running right now, you should feel free to get started filling out these spreadsheets ASAP. Thanks for listening.